All right, Godtear enthusiasts. So we've been looking at some of the different champions, looking at some of the different combinations, and building on that. I wanted to kind of step back and focus on the DNA, focus on the core mechanics. And in building this Tactica checklist, the idea is to explore some of the constants that are always in play, regardless of the mission, regardless of the champions / warband, and regardless of the number of champions that we're playing. In a way, think of this layer as a filter to accomplish the mission goals based on the champions that you have. So we're going to dive in. Right away, controlling and influencing the dice is very, very important. And certainly this is not something unique to Godtear. We see this with all sorts of skirmish games, war games. Anytime that there are dice involved, we want to be able to control them when it's our turn, but when it's your opponent's turn or the opposite side's turn, to kind of really mess things up and throw out the random. And Godtear has some amazing tactica to do this, amazing tactica that we always want to be on the lookout for. So with that, if we think about what the dice represents, we have the different champions, we have their abilities, and we have their powers. This is a constant in the game. And what I mean by that is you can utilize these powers as long as the champions or the followers are up, and as long as you meet the other conditions like being in range or having an effect in play. If you maneuver into the right position, these abilities get to be pulled off. They get to be utilized. You can count on them. But often what you now see is the introduction and the application of dice. You have to roll to see what happens. You have to roll to see the effects. Your opponent is going to try and counter that with a counter roll. And this kind of represents the fog of war. This represents the fact that in the narrative, we're pushing around models and miniatures. They're moving around. I mean, this is a skirmish combat-based game. And again, this is not unique to just Godtear, but it's important in Godtear because in controlling the dice, you leverage your chances of achieving mission points, right? Turn by turn, round by round. At the end of the round, whoever has the most points wins. And unlike other skirmish games, unlike other war games where you go in fighting for a mission, you're going to play 5, 6, a set number of turns, X number of turns. And when that's over, you kind of look and the dust settles and you see who won the game. Setups like that, what that means is essentially if you do really, really well in the first couple of rounds, there's almost no reason to play the game any further because you've won based on an end game goal. In Godtear, this is different. This is vital. This is important because turn by turn, not only can the flow of the game change, but by earning points at the end of every round, what this means is you're never truly, truly knocked out. And towards the mid-game where the points increase, yes, if you're behind, if you have a bad turn 1, turn 2, yes, you're behind. It's going to be hard, but you're not completely shut out from the game. So a very, very, very dynamic rule set. What this means is that you need to be on point. You need to be ready every single turn looking for these opportunities. So going back to controlling the dice, very, very important. Now we see this idea of controlling dice as it's implemented in Godtear by being able to increase our dice pool and affect our dice pool. So this is kind of the easiest way to think about it. If I have 2 champions, let's say we're playing a 2-champion versus 2-champion game, both those champions are going to attack a single target. Physically put out the dice, the number of attack dice, and the dice that you're going to roll. This represents your dice pool. Likewise, if we kind of put out 3 war bands, just line them up, maybe visually, put the dice, or counters if you don't have enough dice, next to each champion, next to each group of followers. This is all you have to work with every single turn. This is the dice pool that you have. And when you roll these dice, that's going to determine success or failure. Now, as the game continues, that dice pool is going to get less and less based on positioning. Just you're having a model camp, you're having, Shale kind of camp in the back to claim, so that dice pool is not in effect because there's no one around. But look, at least I'm getting the Godtear, and I'm planting the banner, and I've got Landslide on standby ready to go. So that dice pool is not in effect. You might not be in range. Or as you take losses. Now, you truly never take full losses compared to other games because you can always rally, you can always recruit. But in rallying and recruiting, that takes actions, that takes positioning. So in theory, your dice pool is a little bit smaller. So keeping the dice pool as high as possible. When it's your turn, based on synergy, based on buffs, how can you increase your success by adding, changing, manipulating the dice? No sleight of hand, right? Just casting out boons and banes and those aspects of the game. Likewise, if you're attacking a target or you're interacting with a target, how can you throw up the dice so your opponent, when it's their turn to make that save or to make that resist, they have to manipulate the dice, or they're dealing with a smaller potential pool, a reduction in what they have to do. This understanding of DNA, this understanding of buffs is vital. And the challenge becomes, this is the synergy of the game, the fact that you have this back and forth. This is what you're always looking for. Again, regardless of the warband, regardless of what you're playing, regardless of the champion, some people go all red, they go all slayers, very straightforward to play. Others might go half and half, some that directly attack, some that throw out buffs and curses. However you want to explore it, you need to be looking for these opportunities, because controlling the dice for you, controlling the dice, influencing the dice for your opponent, that is going to make such a massive, massive difference in turn-by-turn earning the points. And again, this exists in any type of war game, but is vital in Godtear because it's not just we play 5 rounds and at the end see who wins. What this means is you have to be on top of it turn by turn. Compared to other skirmish games that are out there, you can't alpha strike turn 1, destroy your opponent round 1, and then just kind of coast because, look, they've got nothing left in the game. You can't do that. You need to be turn by turn because the games are very, very fluid, very, very tight, and this approaching it from this perspective is going to give you that edge.